Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Two World Podcast. I am Barney, and I'm getting us going today. And I'm joined with my two wonderful co-hosts. And the first one is...
I am Jacob.
And also joining us today, of course, is our other co-host, and he is...
Hi there, my name is Ken. Glad to be here.
And if you are joining us from the northernly-ish added latitudes of the northern hemisphere, then we are about 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks into spring. But Ken and I, we thought that one nice thing about spring, aside from the weather and the thunderstorms and blooming and leaves and whatnot, are the sounds of spring. And just so happened that both of us have a few recordings lying around of spring sounds. And talking with Jacob, he said he had a few too. And so today will be a discussion with visual cues and audio cues as well. And we hope that you enjoyed this interesting take that we're going to try out for our show today. Ken and Jacob, what do you guys? What are some of your thoughts about springs or spring, or some sounds that you associate with spring, or sights or smells?
Well, it's nice that there are sounds. All of us come from winter where the silence is deafening. At the same time, there's a peacefulness to it. But after a while, you start to yearn for, the signs of life that are not only growing out of the ground and blooming, but the first time you hear in our area, Jacob and I are in Ohio in the United States, to hear a red-winged blackbird, and those become really welcome sounds.
Mm.
I agree with Ken, and two things come to mind also on top of that I want to mention. And one is that when I took my first sabbatical in 2019, coming to visit you, Barney, in Japan when I did in March, and seeing things blossoming and cherry blossoms and other trees just starting to blossom in Japan, it kind of made me realize or rediscover that dynamic, beautiful time of year. And when I came back to Ohio, I found myself even more attentively looking for things blossoming. And it's like
Mhm.
it reminded me of, by being in another context and seeing nature unfold there, it reminded me to appreciate more what I have back in Ohio, because it was such a spectacular experience coming to Japan then. So I was like, "Oh, well, what is our local equivalent?" And I kept looking for that and finding different things. But the other thing I wanted to say is the very next year, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was such a cloud hanging about over everything. It felt like in life, uncertainty and isolation, and you know emerging into spring during that time out of the cold, because that also came in March.
Mhm.
But like that year when the flowers started to blossom, it was just like such a counterpoint to the chaos in society. Was that the beauty of nature continued to unfold. And I thought a lot that spring about how the natural beauty around us can be a source of grounding and encouragement. And it's nice that if you live in a place where there is a cycle of the seasons, that you can experience that, what it feels like to have the coldness of winter and that lack of blossoming, and then come into it. Each year it's built in this kind of reminder of that cycle, and I think that's beautiful. So those are my thoughts. What about you, Barney?
Yeah, since I grew up in a rural area too, I always felt for spring was the spring peepers and the frogs that chirp and chirp and chirp at night. And I remember that my cousin went down. My cousin knew how well our grandmother liked those sounds so much, and she, my cousin, took a tape recorder down near a creek near her home and recorded, I don't know, quite a few minutes of spring peepers, and then on a cassette tape, and gave it to our grandma. And I'm sure that she listened to it over and over and over again. Knowing her, I know that she did. And I was always so jealous because I thought that would be such a neat thing to have. And I've tried to keep my ears open for frogs and other sounds like that here in Japan, which we do get in the springtime. I'll share that later. And so nice to just hear that, and then I share that with my kids saying how, "Listen to the frogs. Isn't it nice to take this walk and hear them singing?" And it's really good.
Nice. Would
Mhm.
you like some peepers?
Yeah. You've got them queued up? I thought you might.
3.
I do have a clip of frogs here in
Okay.
Japan. I mean, which peepers are technically frogs. I could try to share that with you guys.
That sounds good.
Um, yeah, and it's gonna open on the wrong page here. You'll have to forgive me. Here we go. So this is in March, and this was on a walk with my kids, and this is a rice field. I really wanted a video from May because it's the first week of May when farmers start to flood the rice fields to get ready to plant. So this is March. It's kind of a fallow field that hasn't been tilled under yet. But amazingly, you can kind of see demarcation between a more green field in the foreground and a more brown field, just for perspective's sake. That's a little bit more brown. And there is a little bit of a mound. So there's a ditch there. And I think does have water in it. So that's what we're getting our frogs sound coming in from. And I'm on a walk with my kids. I think that you'll see one of them on a bicycle, if I remember right. So let's just 17 seconds here. A little bit quiet.
Mhm.
But maybe your speakers are loud enough. But yeah, so we do get frogs, and then when the fields get flooded, it's a lot louder, and we get snakes, and then we get frogs of various what tenor, I guess. Really beefy sounding frogs, and then really just kind of spring peeper level frogs too. So it's always so nice to walk with the kids at that time.
Was that Yuma or Silas riding the bike?
That was Yuma. So it was this video I saw was a while ago. It
Okay.
was check the details. 2022.
Okay.
So 4 years ago. Yeah.
He seemed to be drawn in by that. Did you feel like he was taking it in too and, like, kind of finding
Yeah.
it interesting?
Yeah. I think even at that time, maybe Silas was going to daycare.
Oh,
And this is a road that's kind of off the beaten path. And then sometimes, if we had enough time, I would bicycle. We would go by bike. He would sit in the back of the stroller or the bike carrier, and then I would purposefully go down this road, and we'd slow down. And I'd say, "Listen to the frogs. Listen to the frogs." So I think that probably the kids are just having so much fun in their own world that they perceive these, but they don't consciously perceive them. And then us, parents are the people taking walks with them. If you point it out to them, then I think that they catch it, and I think it makes nature and especially springtime and things changing, yeah, all the more excited for them.
Mhm. I love the fact that, you are pointing those things out. I must admit, even though I've been camping almost all of my adult life, I somehow had blinders on a lot of the time. I can remember I used to run a lot with a guy after school when I was teaching, and we'd be running along, and I know I was just laser focused on getting the run done, and he would say things like, "There's a goldfinch sitting right at this," and I said, "A what?" You know, I had they've been around forever, and I wasn't observing those kinds of
Mhm.
things, and, like you were saying about having it pointed out, that started to make me a lot more observant. I'm not sure why it took so long to really notice things. I
Maybe in your defense about the goldfinches, in the wintertime, they are a more muted color. So maybe you just didn't notice that just at that time. Once springtime rolls around and the vibrant gold pops, then you're just, oh, of course I knew they were there.
Well, you're very kind, Barney, but it wasn't
Yeah.
winter.
Maybe it was a female goldfinch then.
Yeah, that helps.
Olive color, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the females are less vibrant, certainly,
Yeah.
yes. Thanks for trying.
Yeah, yeah. I'm anything if yeah. Glass is half full kind of guy.
Oh my.
That is an interesting point, though, about kind of being mentored or shown how to appreciate or observe nature. And it reminds me of the saying or the passage from the New Testament where Jesus talks about people having eyes to see and ears to hear. And it's like we as humans tend to get absorbed in our own schedules and routines. And sometimes it's almost like we need somebody to show us how to slow down and to listen and to know what to look for or to listen for. And so I think your friend was doing you a wonderful service by being there in that way.
Mhm.
That's beautiful. I feel like I would say the same is true for me, for my wife, Katie. She is really good at appreciating nature and slowing down enough to listen and to look for the subtle things that are around us. And so being married to her the over these past 20 some years has helped kind of with my own awareness, and then like experiences where you're with a group or yeah, with others who it's like an exciting thing for them as well. It kind of bolsters that excitement personally too. It's neat. So, has there been anybody like that for you, Barney, who shaped your appreciation for nature or helped you dial in or recognize things that were around you better?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked because I thought this would be a fun little tangent for us to go on for all three of us.
Mm.
Yeah, oh yeah, in my case, both of my parents for sure, especially in terms of birds. We had two feeders in front of the picture window and always had a bird book handy. And not that my parents ever needed it, because they could just call them all out. And it was neat, to be so impressed by that and their knowledge. And then for me to pick it up too. And we don't have necessarily have the same birds here, but I can point out some birds to my kids and then, look them up together now. But yeah, and then me too with my folks, we spent so many times camping and then in a way with just my older siblings because we would go down to the creek and, my oldest brother would and his friends would catch crayfish and, it was just the chance to have those things to explore and be amazed at, and I know that my other older brother, he would say, "I was just down at the creek and the blue herring was there," and, I thought, "Oh, I missed it," and, I would go check because of course it wasn't there, but you could see the footprints, and getting to be able to notice, like, what to look for or when to look for things, because in springtime, throughout the whole day, things change, what you can run into, and, yeah, I really was fortunate, I think, to grow up in a rural area like that. That's one thing that I'm always so thankful for, and then that my parents, both of them, my dad loved the garden, my mom loved the flower garden, spending time outside, both of them being attentive in that way really rubbed off on me in the right way, and I hope that I can help my kids to share that with them too.
Mm. Uh, Jacob, I think like you're mentioning Katie, I give full credit to my wife, Angie. She probably has 10 bird books, and, there's one in each vehicle, and I was also not the guy that would suddenly pull over in the car necessarily and see what might be off in the distance, and she will, ask to pull over the car
Mm,
it only takes a minute, and yeah, and we have a big bird poster in the living room of the ones around here that helps considerably as well. It's
mm,
yeah.
mm. It's interesting, because it's birds, of course, they're coming back in springtime and, they're so noticeable. But Ken, when you mentioned that and about pulling over on the road, it made me think of my mom who around this time of year, or maybe it's fall, I don't know. So it might be getting us off the topic a little bit. that there was always a certain time of season where she'd say, to my dad, "It's time to go down to Holmes County and drive the back roads and check out the bittersweet that is coming out." And,
Ah,
it's neat how probably she has all these memories from that, from however she got connected with checking out the bittersweet, probably from her parents, and then, sharing that with us. And it's so nice, like you say, Ken, to slow down and stop and, go somewhere without a purpose, just to see what you hope you might be able to see along the way. And I am getting us off topic, but spring offers
mhm,
a lot of opportunity for those things. So
mhm.
that's another wonderful thing about that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm just thinking, too, to piggyback on the comments that were shared, Ken, you're talking about Angie and her passion for birds, and I know you had prepared some videos for today, and 2 of them at least, or no, maybe even all of them, at least a number of them have birds in them. Would there be any natural connectors, like, with kind of Angie's love for birds with any of the videos you have prepared for us for today? Would you like to share any of those now?
Oh, that's a good question. I think let's share the grosbeak first, the one
Okay,
that's, the camera for the bird feeder.
okay, that sounds
Because if
good.
we're talking about, true signs of spring, some people tell me in this area, "Oh, we have them all year long." We've never had that experience. The normal arrival, and it's been pretty consistent until this year, is right around the first week of May, and this was 4 or 5 days ago, so
Wow.
it was the earliest. I do put these things into my phone, when the
Mm,
hummingbirds arrive and when the
mhm,
grosbeaks
mhm,
arrive, and Angie had seen the female, much less colorful,
mhm,
prior to seeing the male here as well, and, the male now comes every day and
mhm.
eventually will head on to somewhere else. They're very non-aggressive birds, the male or the female will pull up like this, and if there are others and they seem a little bit anxious about getting food, the grosbeak will fly off. It's rose-breasted
Oh.
grosbeak, and come back later when it's not so busy
Mm,
and partake then. Truly a beautiful bird. Just
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Is
Love
this a
these
good time to
camera bird feeders.
Oh, yes. Yes.
yeah.
Is this a good time to play the clip?
Sure. Not gonna hear any sound, I don't think.
Wow.
Whew.
And then off.
Now
There
what you're
for a moment
seeing
and then
what you're seeing, the yellow feeder back there,
Mm.
that's the one I put grape jelly in, and I don't have any videos or shots of the Orioles yet, but they are also back, and they make kinda they can make kind of an ornery sound, and a lot of times if the jelly's empty, I can hear them in the house, screaming and hollering as if to say, "Let's go. We're here. The show is on if you want it."
Right. You're the This is the only reason why we stop here, by the way.
"Yeah, come on."
Ken, where did you get that camera bird feeder?
Mm.
I have one in the front of the house that you're seeing and one in the back. They were both Christmas gifts.
Oh,
The front
nice.
one was from my daughter. The one I have in the back that I don't think I provided any excerpts, but yeah, that was from a cousin. It's
Wow.
it also serves as my home security system because
Nice.
to all you
That's
potential
very
robbers
good.
out there, I
Right.
I don't have cameras. But I did aim the one you saw sort of at the front door and
Mhm.
the camper, as long as the robbers cooperate.
Is it okay if I share the peacock video now?
Sure. This is at the Kingwood Gardens in Mansfield, Ohio. There are 3 or
Mm.
4 peacocks. Jacob, I know you and Katie have been there. Is that correct? I think,
Yes, we like, yeah, King's Garden a
um,
lot.
I have sounds on my phone, but if the phone's not cooperating,
Mm.
They make a rather grotesque screaming sound. You can hear them all over the grounds of the, gardens when they let loose. But this peacock in particular almost feels trained, you know?
Mm.
If you walk up and the feathers aren't showing, stand there long enough and you're gonna get that show.
I bet, yeah.
But it is incredible that they carry all that around with them.
Oh, yeah. And then is it okay to share the waterfowl since we're talking about
Mhm.
birds? Okay. I'll go ahead and show that one now.
Angie shot this about a week ago. It was a pullover on her way to work. There are
Mm.
some there are some areas like this near us. So a talkative morning. This was pretty early in the morning. Beautiful, beautiful
Mm.
waterfall.
Wow.
Thanks,
Talk
Jacob.
about
Yeah.
talk about having eyes to see and ears to hear that she would recognize
Mm.
that and pull over, she just,
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
like, knows how to perceive and appreciate nature so well. Yeah. Barney, do you have any other bird-related
Yeah, yeah,
videos
thank
would
you.
you like to
Yeah,
share?
I
All right.
was going to, yeah, this is going to be of swans. There's a place near here, about 20-minute drive away. There was a guy who noticed one year that a swan arrived, and I think it's on the way to Siberia maybe, or from Russia, and he was really enraptured by that, and he did what he could to kind of entice the swan to stay and then come back, and then the next year it came back again, and then slowly but surely a few more came back, and then eventually I'll show you what came back with this video here. It turned into
Oh,
this.
wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So now every year, all these swans stop in at this lake.
That's phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
You can hear my mother-in-law.
Uh-huh.
Oh, there she is with
Yeah.
Silas. Yeah.
Wow.
And then Yuba.
Silas is
So,
so young there. It's cute to see
Yeah.
him in that, like, little
Yeah.
snuggly,
the
backpack.
little papoose kind of deal. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
How long do they hang out?
I think for a few weeks, yeah, that they stay there and they're on their way. But it's so neat, word of mouth, even amongst these swans, they're like, "Hey, I know this cool place in Japan, why don't you stop in?" And they're like, "Hey, someone showed me, the next year this cool place. You gotta check it
Wow.
out." And hundreds of them now. And then it's kind of become into beyond what started with one person. It's kind of like a little community that they're a member of a group now that they have there, and then they work together to keep the area provided and swan friendly, and then they come back year by year.
Amazing. When you
Mhm.
talk about the magnitude of how many, Barney, it reminds me, you know Portland pretty well. One year when we were in Portland, Oregon, Angie's daughter took us to this school around 6 in the evening, and there were probably a couple hundred people there on blankets, brought their food to watch the chimney sweeps return to this huge chimney at the school.
Oh, wow.
And when I say there were hundreds, I may be underestimating. They just keep coming and coming, and I'm thinking, "How do they all get along inside of this?"
Yeah,
And they do
'cause they're
this every night,
returning home. Yeah.
every night. Just yeah, massive
Mm,
amounts.
mm.
Well, speaking of birds, I would like to share with you the video that I had shown before we started recording that
Mm.
looks like the Windows 98,
You
or no,
know.
Windows XP, pardon me, Windows XP
Oh,
desktop.
XP, XP,
XP.
that's what it is,
Yes,
XP.
and but it's actually a video of the Kinney Fields in Worcester, and, Katie and Hannah and I were walking one evening, and when we took this picture and several others, we could hear a number of birds, and one in particular at the end of this video really captured my imagination, the red-winged blackbird. So I'm gonna go ahead
Mm.
and play this, and we can listen for its call or its chirp at the very
Mhm,
end.
mhm.
Nice. That's a pretty picture. I just took this picture right here. It's just the grass going up to the sky.
There it was. There it was.
Mm.
Ah, I don't
What a
even know how to
familiar sound.
describe that. It's such a unique.
Mm.
Yeah, I can't even imitate it, but I love it. Almost like an electric sound.
Yeah, and you're right, like, it's hard to imitate, but probably us from Ohio, we've heard that so many times, and then
Yes,
we can place it right away and
Mhm.
associate it with that bird and of course, with springtime.
yes. I know Katie, when she was young, used to go to this Autobahn location named
Mhm.
Allwood that was located in Englewood, Ohio. There's this unique location where there's a family farm that was donated and now is a nature center, and there are trails. But anyway, one of the workshops she went to was about identifying bird calls. And so that is something that has stuck with her over the years. Certain birds, she can, when we're walking the forest, she'll say, "Oh, that's a cardinal," or that, or she'll mention. And I thought, "Oh, that's so wonderful to know that." And then a few years ago, there was this app that came out, the Merlin app. And I don't know if either of you have heard of this, but you can, turn on the app and it will try to identify birds based on the audio input in
Oh,
your
wow.
phone that are around you, and then when it identifies a bird, it'll pop up on this,
Oh,
like,
neat.
register, and so, if you listen for 10, 15 minutes, you see more and more birds added to the list, and when Katie and I were in Japan for my second sabbatical, we were in Narita-san Park, and, we turned it on, and it was picking up some things, but there were certain things it couldn't get,
Wow.
too, because, I think maybe the database is more localized to North America, but anyway, it was pretty neat.
That's oh,
If
wow.
don't if all of us haven't been trained to that extent to recognize all
Mhm.
these bird calls, but when you start to see what they are, it's fascinating, so,
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
wow,
is.
that's cool.
It
Wow.
is. Mhm.
yeah. Well, is there another set of sounds that we wanna dive into next? I have a few, I think, related to frogs. I know we were talking about that at the beginning, but
Mhm.
do you have any, Barney, that or Ken, that you want to highlight next before we do jump into frogs related things?
I just want to mention one. I stood in the yard a lot leading up to this, hoping we have green herons that come and nest in the trees in our yard, and I had never seen this particular bird before moving out to where we are now. I mean, I know blue herons, and you picture them with the long spindly legs standing
Mm.
in the wetlands and in the creeks and looking for fish. The green heron does not have the long spindly legs. It has kind of a much smaller body,
Mhm.
and it sort of looks like the best comparison I can get, it looks like a little bomb. And it has the most unique, throaty, ridiculous sounding call, but it's great because up the green heron is back because, there's nothing like it. that has a call like that, and it's exciting that they'll sit in a dead tree we have here, and just the way they look, they have a very long beak like a woodpecker and this kinda strange body, and yeah, just a neat bird. And being partially colorblind, I love things like goldfinches and green herons where the colors are so distinct that I can really say, "Yeah, that's definitely green." Mm.
Have you ever had the experience since it's so vibrant as you're talking about the green heron there, that have you ever had the experience where you see a bird fly by and it's like a flash of color and you're like, "Oh
Oh,
my goodness." And then you're like following it with your eyes and I was just mentioning our visit Narita Sun Park. There was a kingfisher
Wow.
that flew by and the vibrant, I don't know if you'd say a bluish
Mhm.
like
mhm,
flare as it flew by and
mhm.
then it lighted on a branch and we looked at it and then it flew around to another spot and that reminds me locally of every so often we'll see a bluebird and get that same if the light is right, when it flies, it's like this flash of color. I guess cardinals can do that too in a certain lighting
Oh,
with a
yeah.
red flash.
Mhm,
So, are there any
mhm.
birds that have that you could say, "Oh, when I've seen one of those, it really does that for me," or
Well, occasionally out here, you see, you know, at pretty good elevation, but, you see the white head of the bald eagle, and that's another one where, like you're saying, Jacob, the light if the light is really, really right and hits that head, you've caught a glance at an eagle
wow.
passing by.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, for me, goldfinches, it's just so bright and vibrant in the color. And then hummingbirds,
Oh,
the
yes.
ruby-throated
Mhm,
hummingbirds and that nice green color that's
mhm.
almost kind of a metallic green even, kind of glitters a bit. It's just so neat to see them.
It's wonderful.
Mhm.
Well, if we could transition for a little bit now to a different type of sound, I have a video that I'd like to share with you from the Cyberling Nature Center in Akron.
Mm.
And this video is a compilation of two pictures we took of the pond beside the Cyberling Nature Realm, and they're from different seasons. So the
Oh.
first was in winter, and now this is emerging into spring. And Katie and I went recently. The second photo was more like what it was like when we heard these sounds, and I recorded them there. Just at the end, I think it's so brilliant hearing the frogs and
Mm.
that kind of rich, thick, call to each other. And
It's so nice. You just almost want to just close your eyes and just listen to it. It's just so relaxing and so
Mhm.
great to try and pick out all the different sounds happening. It's just so neat.
oh
It
yeah,
is.
and we were going to hike. We weren't even necessarily thinking we would spend that much time in that particular spot, but when we heard that, we were curious and drawn over, and we had to linger for a bit. And then I just want to share one more video with you, and this is from the Sippo Valley Trail in the section of it that I'm going to share with you about today is from Dalton, Ohio. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit play on this, but
You got the turtle.
yes.
Yeah.
You can see Hannah off in the distance on the shoreline there, enjoying it. Yeah, so the first shot was of a turtle on a log, and the
Hmm.
second was the sound, and I don't know, it must have been a frog, but it over and over again, and I got so close to that. I was trying to find exactly where he was, and I walked as close as I could, and then it would get silent. So would sit for a bit, and then it would start up again. But Hannah and I must have spent like an hour and a half near this pond just sitting and listening, and Hannah likes to go around the edges and play with sticks and look at the water, and there's also a stream, on the other side of the path that she spent a lot of time in that same day, and,
Mm,
it was a truly intergenerational moment, which,
Mm.
like you were saying earlier, Barney, you love to see happen with your kids, and I feel the same way, and just to pause together to enjoy it, and then I also can tell when Hannah's really engaged, I wanna give her space, and she wanted to linger, and so just kind of encouraging her in that is helping her develop, like you were saying, Ken, the ability to see what's around her and to listen, and so yeah, she went into the stream for a long time, and that's one of her favorites too, looking for crawdads and salamanders,
Mm.
but the sounds are so rich, and, this is a beautiful trail. It goes from Dalton to Maslin, and
Mm.
it's great for biking, and there are some neat things along the way, like this pond is one example of some really neat things that you can see. Have you ever been by this, either of you?
Mm.
The Sippo Valley
I
Trail?
don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting, even just for a walk, because there's a couple trailheads, and it's real convenient to park and just, get out for a nice chances
Mm.
for exercise, and
Mm.
Ha Your Hannah has always had a great kinship with nature.
Yeah.
Man, yeah.
thank you. I agree. That's a gift. And I think her mom has helped cultivate that a lot too and modeled it, and that's really good. Yes. Are there any other videos or images that you would like to share, Barney, in this kind of realm of creatures? I know Ken has another video with a fire, but is there anything else you would want to share, Barney?
I have not the last images I have are of two-legged creatures, so
Oh, please, let's do it.
oh, yeah, sure.
Two-legged
Um,
creatures, right,
yeah, yeah,
of the
yeah.
Homo sapien,
Yeah, exactly, yeah,
right.
really.
Okay, go for it.
So another thing that made me think of sounds, I thought this would be interesting because as Jacob was mentioning that when spring rolls around, then, y at the very end of winter, you get the plum blossoms, and then you have a little bit of the peach blossoms, and then you get the cherry blossoms. And something that's so unique to Japan is people have picnics with these trees, and everywhere where one or two of these trees are gathered, then people will.
Then they come.
If you plant them, they will come.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try. I also have some audio that I'm going to try to share here, but it's separate. It's on a separate application, so I'm not sure if it'll come through. I hope it does. As you see these pictures, hear that this audio might be going on at the same time.
What is this?
So people are picnicking, as you can see, just everywhere there are people, and there are these cherry blossoms, and people from just everywhere just want to come and spend time here. And I think they are intentionally planted in rows in some areas, and some areas are just kind of grew there. And I experimented with my little toy lens filter here, but people bring these blue sheets and they gather together and they grill, or they bring food, or they go to the nearby grocery store and bring food, and then an up close shot of the cherry blossoms. The other interesting thing is, when you get spring, then you also get the rain, and you can kind of see on the ground in this photo little white specks, and that it isn't long that the cherry blossoms will get knocked off by a stiff wind or rain. But it is also neat too, where if it hasn't rained but it is windy, you see them floating in the breeze, and it's just walking along, and that adds a nice element to them too. And yeah, I don't know if the audio came through or not, but you hear people chatting and playing, and people from different cultures, these days, especially as kind of the landscape is changing a bit. Japan, even though they don't have a real tradition of it and where they came from, they join in and a nice excuse to have a picnic outside and under these cherry blossoms. And there's actually a saying in Japanese that one kind of common snack is that people will take with them is it's kind of like a sticky rice snack that will be on a stick, and it might be covered with red beans, a sweet red bean paste. And they say some people spend more time enjoying this snack than they do looking at the trees. So, so the
That's
trees
right.
almost become an afterthought, but it's the initiative is to spend time with the trees. But then once you get there with friends and food, you really focus on the people that you're around.
Wow. Barney, and I don't know what kind of pollen the cherry blossoms have. I don't
Mhm.
know plants that well, but I mean, do you get bees? Do you get, you know,
Yeah, that's
honeybees?
funny because I asked my wife one year, I said, if someone had a hive near here, would they produce cherries? And then she said, it doesn't seem like it's that kind of tree, but you
Okay.
will see some, you know, bees around, whatnot, but not like you would think. It's not really very. At least whenever I've been around, it's not. You would think there'd be lots of insects
Mhm.
getting busy pollinating there, but you don't seem to see it.
Okay. Butterflies?
No.
Okay.
Hmm.
Hmm. Interesting.
Hmm. Yeah.
So so there might be some distinctions, like, that we could articulate quickly that would be, like,
Hmm.
subtle differences between the ecosystem here in Ohio versus in Narita.
Hmm.
So, like, it sounds like the number of pollinators is one. The prevalence, like, the cherry blossom is a lot more prevalent, would you say there
Yeah.
than and
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
peach and plum blossom
Hmm.
too? And we have some here. Are there any other, since you've lived in both places, Barney,
Right.
are there any other things that stand out as like, "Wow, the ecosystem here really highlights this. In Ohio, I noticed this, and it's missing here." Is there
Mhm.
any other, like, observation like that that could be helpful for us to, like, hear? Maybe that's
One
kinda
one
interesting.
interesting thing is the daffodils bloom a lot earlier here. And I guess that's probably because our longitude is probably similar to North Carolina. So
Uh,
in January is when we start to get daffodils. Yeah. And then there's one tree that we have here that I so wish the climate were right for in Ohio. And it is an olive tree that is like a citrus, orange citrus olive tree. I guess that doesn't quite make sense, but I can't quite think of what it's called. But it blooms in September, and the blossoms are just amazing. Just the smell is just so amazing, but they don't winter well with the real extreme winter, so it would be hard to have them in Ohio. But and then it's just, things that we might have in Ohio that don't necessarily have here. I'm trying to wonder.
Do you get
But
crocuses in the early spring? That's one of the ones that
yeah,
pop
in
even before
indicative.
daffodils.
Yeah, right. But I don't think that maybe in this area we don't really so much have them. One other thing that we do have that's nice that kind of the parks are intentional about is lotuses. So you'll have you can find a few parks around that have like a dedicated kind of pond, and then they are filled with lotuses. And when it's that when you they start coming up out of the water, and then they bloom with the beautiful dark pink color, and
Mm.
they often have the koi, the carp that they have in the same area, and then you'll see lots of turtles too, and then sometimes ducks come by. But Yeah, and there's a lot of overlap too. It's just the season changes. Like we get rhododendrons and azaleas and whatnot here, but otherwise, yeah, it's there are a lot of similarities. Just when they bloom is different, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, would this be an okay time to transition to your image or your video of the fire, Ken?
Sure.
Okay, great. I'm gonna just pull that up here. And maybe it's really interesting. I'd love to hear a little bit of
Mm,
context and
We had mostly Angie. She had trimmed some bushes and trimmed them pretty severely because they were just growing wildly. And while this is not necessarily a sound generally considered to be part of traditional spring sound, it sort of is for us because it feels like now it's time to get back outside and get to work
mm,
on what needs to be done in the yard. I know Jacob, you did the mulching, and we've been doing the
yeah.
mulching, and yeah, we've had some fires in the winter before, but it was warm enough for this one to not only sit there in the background. You can see a field, and you can see one of the friendly cows. This
Oh,
is this is always an impromptu traditional spring thing as well. I'll see the four-wheeler out there, and they're stringing up the electric
mm,
wiring for the fence, and they'll let the cows graze there for a couple of weeks, and then down goes the fence, and the cows are moving on. I almost saw one born a couple of years ago. It had just, dropped from the mother in the field, and I called the owner just to say, "You've got a brand new newborn out here in the field. You might wanna make sure it's okay." But, it's fun to have the cows show up in the spring.
oh, yeah. And I feel like I kind of interrupted the clip by asking a question right as it started. Can I play it one more time just to hear that satisfying sound again of that
mm,
crackling?
mhm.
I find it interesting in Ohio that the burn laws around here is you can only burn after 6 p.m. and before 6 a.m. in the spring.
Hmm.
I'd love to talk to somebody and try to get an understanding there. Spring is when things are wet and the risk of fire seems less than it would be in the middle of the summer, but after the end of May, you can burn all day. And I don't get the logic, but I know there must be reasoning there somewhere.
Yeah, well, are there any other comments or thoughts that any of us would like to share before we would close our time today?
Well, it's been Barney, did you wanna make a comment?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. It's been interesting to, once again, share with you 2 always,
Mhm,
but to get a good glimpse of how you perceive nature and what you find every spring and at
mm,
other
mhm.
times that really pique your interest. The sounds of nature are a wonderful God-given thing, and we can't stress enough what a gift nature all around us is, regardless of where you live. There's always some nature to be found, and it was fun to find those moments with the 2 of you. So on behalf of Barney and on behalf of Jacob, our co-host, we will bid a fond farewell on this episode of the Two World Podcast, and we look forward to the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.